Hello. We are going to be going over all the books I've read so far this year and my rating of them, what I thought of them, whether or not I think you should read them or spend your time on them. So far I've read 18 books this year, and my goal is to read 40, so that's almost halfway, about halfway through the year. Pretty good stats, I believe. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. In January, I read 3 books. The first one being Under Your Scars by Ariel. It is a dark romance. It's 475 pages, which isn't too long, isn't too short in my opinion. I started it on New Year's Eve, December 31st, and then finished it on January 2nd. I rated it 5 stars. And basically, you follow the female main character, Elena, and you just go through her life with her. It is, I believe, I don't remember, but I believe it's dual POV, where you get her POV and the love interest's POV. There are 2 of them, perhaps, or so you think. But the first one is a serial killer named the Silencer. He calls himself the Silencer, and I think, the general public does as well. And he's basically a vigilante. He kills the people who do bad things. Like thieves, people who harass women in the streets, etc. The Silencer meets Elena because she's walking home from work, and these dudes start harassing her and trying to rob her. So he saves her and he kills them, and then he starts stalking her. And then you have her boss, who's a millionaire and the CEO, I think. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's the CEO, or just like the big boss at least. And he treats her good. He really does. He treats her good. And you just go through their lives together. And it's a lot of emotional turmoil. I'm pretty sure I cried at the end of it. And it really brings you up and then breaks you right back down, which I heavily enjoyed. And as someone who doesn't read a lot of romance, like I haven't read romance in so long, because it's just not really my genre. I don't really like romance that much, but I did really enjoy this book. I could guess a lot of the plot, well, maybe not a lot, but I could guess some of the plot twists, which I'm overall pretty good at, I would say. But there were still some things that shocked me with the way the author wrote it. There were quite a few good quotes that I really liked, like some funny ones, some, oh, I would date him ones, if you get what I mean. And yeah, overall it was pretty good from coming from someone who doesn't really like romance that much. But yeah. On to the second book I read in January, which for Under Your Scars I didn't have the physical copy of it and I read it on Kindle, but I think I have physicals for every other book I read this year. I'm pretty sure. The second book I read in January was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. It is a classic with a scary plot in it. It has 182 pages. I don't remember how long it took me to read it, but I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Basically, this old man, I think, and if it's not an old man, it's just some man, is doing a research project while in this house, and he invites this group of people to come live with him in this house for a period of time while he does his little research program. I think seeing how the house affects people, seeing as it's haunted. Something along those lines. I can't really remember too well. We follow them while they do that. And then we have Eleanor, which, if I remember correctly, is who we follow throughout the whole book. There are definitely a lot of, scary moments in this book. And just, what is happening right now? I would run out of this place, quite frankly. There's betrayal, there's paranormal, there is friendship, there is going crazy, a lot of psychological aspects, and you honestly kind of go crazy with them. Honestly. it ends in a betrayal, and it ends horribly. Not like in a bad writing way, but it ends like, what did I just read? Way, you know? And overall, it's pretty good. It's pretty short, quick and easy read, even though I don't know how long it took me to read it. But if you are into scary things or paranormal or psychological things, this is definitely a book that you should read. Like, paranormal and psychological things, right up my alley, and I loved it so much. The third and final book I read in January is You Are But Dust by Hannah Clayton. It is a psychological thriller, which, as I just said, my favorite genre ever. It is 366 pages long. I also don't remember how long it took me to read this one. I honestly think that this one took me a while to read, but I finished it on January 29th, apparently. And I saw it on TikTok, and the people that were advertising it were just saying that it's a book written about a girl going crazy, written by a psychologist or a therapist or something along those lines. I don't know. You start off. Let me fact check myself to make sure I don't spoil anything for anyone. Okay, actually, I want to show you guys something really cool about this book. So when you start off on part 1, it has I'm okay, everything is okay, right? And then as you go further in, it starts a little hangman game, right? So it slowly builds the little hangman thing as you're reading it. Let me go further in so I can show you what I mean. The chapters are kind of long, or maybe I just found a long one. Like, see, it starts the hangman game and you go along with it. As as the main character goes crazier and crazier. Like, see, this is part 2, the page for part 2, and it has more writing on it. But basically, this girl's sister dies, and you start off at the funeral, and this man comes up to her being like, you owe me money. And she's like, I'll get it to you when I can't get it to you right now. And you meet after the funeral at the little thing where all the people go to hang out or whatever. I don't really know what that's called. This man comes up who was friends with her sister, and apparently no one wants him there, but he like knew her the best. There's part 3 of the page. He knew her the best. He was like one of her closest friends, whatever. And then the main character, Samara, hates this dude, but she freaks out during the little hangout part after a funeral, whatever it's called. And he takes her to the hospital. He starts driving her to the hospital. And then from there, it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And it has drug aspects. And yeah. Basically, if you just want to be in the head of someone who is going absolutely crazy, and then she progressively gets better. Like, see, the hangman falls off the little thing, and he's not, like, dying anymore. And then he starts walking off with a little smile on his face. It's really good. Although it did take me a long time to finish and a long time to get into it, but I think I was just in a reading, like a little funk when I was reading it. So it made it hard. And then she's also getting followed by like the Grim Reaper type thing. And yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that right now, actually. Now on to the books that I read in January. I mean, not January, February. The books I read in February. Only read 2. Not my best work. Oh goodness. The first book I read in February is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid. It is also a psychological thriller, like a horror, something along those lines. This book is also pretty short. It's 210 pages. I also don't know how long it took me to read this one, but I finished it on the 16th of February. and I rated it 3.5 stars. And I believe you start off in the car with the main character, the female main character, and she's with her boyfriend, and she's going to meet his family. And the vibes are just really weird and really off. And the relationship, she doesn't really want to be in it, or they're not fully dating it, and she doesn't really want to date him. And they eventually get to his childhood home, and the vibes are really weird, and everything's just really weird. And eventually they leave to go somewhere, and it just keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder. I was reading this in school during Spanish class, and my friend she sits in front of me in that class, and she was doing her work, and you can ask her, like, every day, every like 20 minutes, I was tapping her shoulder being like, hey, can I tell you what just happened, because it's absolutely crazy. And she was shocked, I was shocked. It's kind of hard to get into during the first part, but once you get into it, whether you're liking the story or not, if you finish the book, you're still going to be really shocked. And it's really interesting. And the ending is crazy. The ending's really crazy. But there's not really much to it besides all the weird things happening, to be honest. So, I think if you just want to be shocked a lot, read it. But honestly, I wouldn't really say that it's 100% worth the read. But yeah, that's all for this book. And then the second and final book I read in February was The Life She Wants by J.M. Hewitt, I believe you would say it. Yet another psychological thriller. It is short and stubby, which I really like short and stubby books. And it's 306 pages. It took me 3 days to read. I started it on the 16th of February and finished it on the 19th. I rated it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of the year, along with Under Your Scars. And basically, you're following Paula, and her marriage just is not the best. She has a really sucky husband. I hated him the whole entire time. So he suggests they go on a cruise. So they're on this cruise, and I believe it's a dual POV. I might be wrong, but yeah, it's a dual POV. I'm pretty sure. And the other POV you're following is this girl named Anna. Anna is cuckoo crazy. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is. Paula wants to have kids, but Tommy doesn't, and he's been avoiding the conversation forever because his company's always doing wrong or doing really good when she suggests they try, and all these different things. So he says that they'll finally talk about it while they're on this cruise. But that's when they meet Anna. And things start going south and horrible for Paula the second Anna comes up. They're friends at first. Like, Anna tries to act like they're friends and she's a girl's girl. No. And Tommy starts being an even worse husband. Even worse husband. You can use your imagination to find out what I mean by that, but I think we can all guess. And Paula, this girl almost dies so many times. She loses all faith in herself. She has very low self-esteem, and her life just goes horrible throughout the whole book, basically. It kept me really hooked the whole entire time. Like, the whole entire time, there was not a second where I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. Should I really read it right now? Didn't happen one time. I loved this book. But that is all I read in January. Now on to March. Hello again. I went to go eat Subway. It was really good. But now, I believe we're on to March. I read 5 books in March. Just go ahead and... Oh, I was about to grab the whole stack. I don't know why. But anyway, on to the first book I read in March is I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. It is a historical fiction, and it has 336 pages. We read it in school because the author, Ruta Sepetys, was coming to visit our school, and she actually signed my book here. I don't know how well you can see that, but she signed the book. So I read it from sometime in February, and then I finished it on March 2nd. I'm pretty sure I finished it on my own before we finished it in class, because I really, really, really liked it. I rated it 5 stars. But basically, this is set in Romania during 1989. And it's when they were in a dictatorship. And you follow Christian and his family, and everyone's living in the same apartments. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, and everyone has to live in the same style apartments. Everyone gets the same amount of furniture. Christian wants to become a writer, but given that it's a dictatorship, you don't really have the freedom to do anything. And Christian is at school one day, and he gets called to the office, and he's blackmailed into becoming an informer, where he's basically a spy, and he reports back to the SECU, which is the secret security, like the spies over the whole country, basically. Like, they watch everything you do and they arrest you. Cops, basically, but significantly worse. So he gets blackmailed into becoming an informer, and he's given the choice of betraying everyone he loves or using the position that he's in to get closer to, like, trying to break down the regime. You know? And he learns the truth and exposes it to the world. And there are Americans that are visiting. I forget what it was called. Diplomats. There are American diplomats, and his mom works for this family. She cleans for them, and he becomes close with the son, because that's what the SECU forces him to do. And he uses that to his advantage. And he has this girl that he has a really big crush on, and we see that little romance story as well. And there's a lot of shocking parts. Towards the end of it, there's a lot of shocking parts, and some of it's really sad, obviously. Christian and his love interest, Lily, I think, are very cute. And overall, if you're into history, okay, Ruta Sepetys, I love her. I'm so happy the school forced me to read this book, because I love her now. I've only read 2 of her books so far, but it's wonderful. On to the next book that I read in March. Fairytale by Stephen King. It's a fantasy, which you wouldn't expect from Stephen King. I mean, obviously his books are like fantasy, but more on the horror side. This is just a plain old fantasy. Not really horror or anything like that. It's pretty thick. I think it's over 600 pages, or around 600. It cut off on me again, didn't it? Well, I don't know if you heard this part, but if you want to experience Stephen King's writing that is really good, but don't want to read horror, Fairytale is a good book to read. Now, I've also read these 2 books during March. The first 2 books of the Kane Chronicles by Riordan. The first one, which is the only one I can summarize out of the 3-book series, because if I summarize the other 2, it will spoil something for you, possibly. So, you're following the Kane family. There's the 2 kids, Carter and Sadie. Their mom died in a tragic accident, which is in the synopsis. So, if you don't read synopsises, this is not the video for you. And their father is doing a research experiment inside of a museum that goes horribly wrong and releases a Egyptian god and kidnaps their dad and causes issues for them. So, like most Rick Riordan books, it is up to the middle schoolers to save the world, which is exactly what Carter and Sadie do. It is based off of the Egyptian gods instead of the Greek gods, like Rick Riordan normally does. And the Carter and Sadie learn that the Egyptian gods are walking amongst the earth and with them. And yeah. And then, can you guess what happens in the second book? They have to save the world. And then, I only read one book in April, and it was the final book in the series. And can you guess what happens in this one? It's up to middle schoolers to save the world again. Is there a running pattern, Rick Riordan? But yeah. Anyway, sorry my attitude's so bad. I'm so mad at this camera, and that's why. But it's a really good fantasy series to read. I mean, obviously, it's meant for, like, kids and stuff. So, it's, like, it's not really meant for kids, but I think it's really good. It's a really good fantasy series. Rick Riordan's books are really good no matter what age you are. I rated the first one 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of the year as well. Excuse me. I rated the second one 4 stars, and I rated the third one 3.5 stars. I finished the first 2 books in 4 days, and then the third one, it took way longer for me to finish. I started it on March 31st and finished it on April 17th. But now on to May, which I made up for my lack of reading in April with May, I believe. So, let's get into that now. I read 6 books in May, which I think is the most books I've ever read in a month. The first book I finished in May is The Dead Poets Society by Robin Williams. It's a YA teen drama, and it's really short. It's barely over 100 pages. I started it on April 29th, and I finished it the 1st of May. I rated it 5 stars. It was another one of my favorite books this year. And you're following Todd Anderson and his friends at Welton Academy, which is an all-boys school. And they get a new English professor, John Keating. And that he inspired this group of boys, Todd Anderson and his friends, to reopen the Dead Poets Society, which the English professor was in when he was in that school. And it just gives them, being in this society gives them more freedom than they have in school. Like, the school's really strict. It's a private school. It's really strict, really don't have passions or free will type of thing. And being in this society together gives them that opportunity to actually have free will, basically, and have passion. And I annotated it. I annotated it on my Kindle while I was reading it, and when I bought the physical copy of it, I put it all inside of the book. I'll do a little. The things that I annotated in here, I had quotes, plot, funny, and then the school doing crazy things and parents doing crazy things, and then I also had one for utter disbelief. There are quite a few really good quotes in here. Not a lot, but also a few funny things, and then a lot of the school and parents being crazy and me being in utter shock. There is also a few sad things in here, that just made me be like, oh, that hurt. Not really like made me cry or anything, it just hurt. And then I showed you guys my reading journal earlier. In the journal, it has a side where it has thoughts and quotes or anything you want to write from the book. And this is the most I've ever written about a book. And I would have written more, but I filled up the whole entire page. So that should show you how good this book is, especially quote-wise. One I really liked was the English professor, Mr. Keating, saying, "Language was invented for one reason, boys, to woo women, and in that endeavor, laziness will never do." And, yeah, Mr. Keating just really helped these boys out. And, you know, they really show that being in an all-boys school, how little exposure to women they got. Like, some of it's hilarious whenever they encounter a girl. Especially a pretty one. Okay, on to the next book I finished in May. Another Ruta Sepetys book, The Fountains of Silence. It's obviously a historical fiction, like I said, for her. It's way thicker than I Must Betray You was. It's 472 pages long. I started it on April 29th and finished it on May 5th. I rated it 4.5 stars, and it's about another dictatorship, except it's in Madrid in 1957. And you're following another American visiting this country, Daniel, and he meets this girl named Anna. How do I explain this? So, Daniel is visiting with his family because his mother is from Spain. You learn about a bunch of different secrets that the country had and horrible things that they did. You see Anna's family that struggles and also has a bunch of secrets, just like Christian's family did in I Must Betray You. Daniel helps the rest of the world see what's happening in Madrid because he wants to pursue photography, and he takes a lot of pictures while he's there. And when he goes back to America, he shows all of these photographs and lets the American people and other people around the world find out what's really happening in Madrid. And there's just a lot of twists and turns and things that you would never expect. I did some underlining in this book as well. And, well, it looks like I mainly did it in the first half. And there's Anna's sister, which you also follow a few times in this book. And she is a nun, basically, and works at an orphanage. And there's a bunch of secrets to uncover there. There's a bunch of different things that happen there as well. And yeah, just like I Must Betray You, if you're into history at all, this Ruta Sepetys and The Fountains of Silence is really good to look at. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say on here. Actually, I Must Betray You seemed more like it was written for a younger audience, while The Fountains of Silence was more mature. That's all I have to say on The Fountains of Silence. The next book I read in May, Caraval. Don't even get me started on this. I feel like Caraval's a pretty popular book, but it's by Stephanie Garber. It's a fantasy. It's about 402 pages long. I read it in one day. I started it on the 5th of May and finished it on the 6th. I rated it 4.75 stars, and you're following Scarlet and Donatella. You're following Scarlet and Donatella, who are sisters, and they're writing the start of the book, the first couple pages of the book, is letters to the Grand Master of a carnival called Caraval, obviously. And eventually Donatella and Scarlet end up being able to go to the carnival. And Scarlet definitely forgets that it's just a game. She forgets to remember it's only a game, despite all the warnings she got. And there is so many plot twists. So many. And I ate it up. This is a book that I loved before I even read it. Like, I knew I wanted to read it really bad, and I knew I would love it when I read it, and I did. It did not disappoint at all. It's really captivating and very exciting, and there's a lot of intriguing things about it, and it just teaches you quite a few lessons as well. And it's just very interesting to watch them go through this game that's absolutely sick and twisted. And then I'm going to go a bit out of order because I read 2 books in between these, but I also did read the second book in the series, the trilogy, Legendary. I think this one was my favorite. I really do. I thought Caraval was my favorite because, you know, it's the OG. It's the first book. But I honestly really liked Legendary. Caraval was in Scarlet's POV and Legendary was in Donatella's. And it's bigger than the first book. It's 443 pages. I read this. It took me way longer to read this one. I started it on the 6th and finished it on the 22nd. The plot in this one is very different compared to the first book, but it's still very interesting. Seeing how Donatella thinks and what she goes through and what she went through in the first book, from seeing it from her perspective, is just so mesmerizing, I guess you could say. It's really interesting to see. And there's a bunch of new things happening. Like, it's not just focused on the game like the first book was. It has so many other plot points, and Donatella really isn't even focused on the game, except for the fact that she has to get through with what she's doing before the game ends. And she goes through a lot physically and emotionally, mentally. And it's so good. Really, it is. And then also in May, after I finished Caraval, I finished The Midnight Library, which I did not start in May. I didn't start in April. You want to know the sad part? The even sadder part? I didn't even start it this year. I started The Midnight Library by Matt Haig on November 26th of 2025, and I finished it on May 20th of 2026. As you can see, I was annotating this book, and I think that is what made me not want to read it. Whenever I've been annotating a book, it makes me just not really want to read it that much, to be honest, because it's a lot of work annotating. It really is. And I'm trying to get better at it because I do really like annotating, and I enjoy going back and looking at the annotations I made, and it's so pretty and aesthetic. This book is a very interesting concept. I rated it 3 stars. It's a very interesting concept. You follow the main character, who is Nora, and this is also based in the UK or London or somewhere. British, I guess. I sound very American when I say that, don't I? But anyway, she's very sad with her life. very, very sad with her life. And she just thinks it really kind of sucks. There's a lot of misery and there's a lot of regret. And she tries to kill herself. And while she gets to this little in-between space of life and death, where she goes to the Midnight Library. And in this library, there's a bunch of different books that can take you to another life, where you made a different decision and you lived life differently and you can experience it. But if you find out that you're not happy in that life you're in, you get teleported back to the library to try out a different book. You start reading the book to get transported into these lives. That right there. That is when she gets transported into the library right after she kills herself, or tries to. This is her going through about 1,000 different lives. I understand that's the whole plot of the book. But did it need to be that many? Did you really need to include that many lives? Or some of them weren't even important to the things that she regretted in life, in my opinion. And honestly, this book just kind of made me mad. Like, I loved the idea of it, and I got this book a couple years ago as a surprise gift, and I really wanted to enjoy it. Because if someone gives me a book as a gift, let's say it that way, I want to read it and enjoy it and love it and be like, OMG, thank you so much for blessing me with this. I couldn't do that with this. I really couldn't. There were some really good quotes and moments in it, but it just didn't need that much. It really didn't. Or it could have been done better. Honestly, it just wasn't the best book I've ever read. That's really all I can say about it. And then the last book I read in May, The Four Winds. I started reading this for English class, where we had to pick a novel to read on our own and do assignments for it, that kind of thing, right? I started it on April 17th. I finished it on May 22nd. Oh, also for the Midnight Library and this, The Four Winds, I couldn't force myself to finish them. Like, I liked The Four Winds way better than I liked the Midnight Library, but I just couldn't force myself to sit down and read them anymore. So I played video games while listening to the audiobook. I've been using audiobooks as a way to finish books that I don't want to flip through and read on my own. But anyway, Into the Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. It's a historical fiction, a little over 400 pages long. I did rate it 4 stars, and I did really enjoy it. I really enjoyed the story, but it's honestly the same thing as the Midnight Library. It just got boring at some parts, and I couldn't force myself through them. But you're in Texas during the Great Depression, and at the start of the book, you're following Elsa and her horrible family that treats her terribly. And she defies them. She ends up getting pregnant. And she goes to live with the baby daddy's family. They honestly kind of want to reject her too, but they don't. But she's living on a farm with them, and she just basically rebrands her whole life, but still with the emotional and mental trauma of it. Like, the effects of what she went through with her own family. And her daughter just doesn't treat her the best and prefers her dad. The dad ends up absolutely sucking, which I never really liked him anyway. She's older, he's younger. You can figure out what you want from that if you don't read it. And eventually, I'm trying to make sure I don't spoil anything. And everyone starts going west to California. The grandparents, the Martinellis, Elsa's in-laws, they don't want to leave their farm, but Elsa and her children do. And I don't know if I should say it's an even harder struggle or it's just as much of a struggle as living on a farm during the Great Depression was, but it certainly wasn't that much easier. They still lived a really hard life and they meet new people and their lives just change and they go through so much politically, and it honestly is a very beautiful and good story, especially again if you're into historical fiction. It's really good, and yeah, I don't really have much else to say for it. At some parts I called it a little bit boring, and some parts I just felt like while I was reading it, it was way longer than it needed to be, but once I finished it, I realized that it was important and necessary. So you just really honestly gotta have patience with that book. But yeah. And then June, this month so far, I have read 2 books. The first one being the 3rd book in the Caraval series, finishing off the series finale. I can't really say much about summarizing this one without spoiling some things that happen in the 2nd book, but I'll say it this way. A problem was caused in the 2nd book, and this book is just about Donatella having to deal with solving that problem and going through a bunch of other emotional turmoil. And a lot of trouble in paradise for both Donatella and Scarlet. I feel like there were quite a few things that shocked me, or things that were done that shocked me, like, oh wow, that person would do that. And during the 2nd half of the book, there were so many comedic aspects, and there were so many funny things that just made me genuinely cackle out loud that probably scared my dog in the middle of the night. One of them was Julian looked as if he wanted to keep arguing. He probably would have if Nicholas wasn't there instead. He just swatted at an unfortunate ladybug with more force than necessary. Like, I may have not the best humor, but that was hilarious when I read it. And there's just a lot of, what are you gonna choose moments? What are you gonna do? You know, if that makes any sense at all. And then the final book I've read so far this year, and then the last book I read this month, which it's the 18th or 19th when I'm filming this, and I still have a bunch of books left on my TBR that I need to finish, that I need to get to. I'll probably have to make another video on that. I'm in the middle of 4 books right now, and I have 2 others on my TBR for this month. But anyway, on the last book I've read this year and this month, Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, or I don't really know how else you would say it actually. It's a fantasy. It's about 500 pages long. I read it in 6 days. I started it on June 3rd and finished it on the 9th. I rated it 4 stars. It's about witches, and it's like a witch dating a witch hunter for her own benefit, right? And you're following Lou and Coco at the start of the book, and eventually they get into some trouble, and Lou's forced to make a decision to help herself, and she does that, and you watch her have to deal with this decision that she made, and then eventually it's all ripped out from underneath her by her mother that she's running from. I do have some strong feelings about this book, actually. I was about to just end it right there because I'm tired of filming this video, but I do have some strong feelings about this book. I have a very big love-hate relationship with it. I rated it 4 stars, but I bet you wouldn't guess I almost DNF'd it. I did. I almost did. There's some parts of this that are so difficult to get past. Like, especially with the things that are going on in the world already, some things that are happening in this book are so hard to get past, and it just makes you want to rip it in half and throw it across the room. About, like, the things that are said and assumed about women by these religious freaks. just such blatant disrespect of women. And I also noticed while I was reading it, it has a compliment or a quote or whatever about the book from Sarah J. Maas at the top right there. Sarah J. Maas wrote the Throne of Glass series. I don't know if you can see it, but I have the whole series up there. I'm also reading Kingdom of Ash, which you're sitting on right now. And there were a bunch of things in here that reminded me of Throne of Glass. Like, maybe not a bunch, but there were quite a few things. There were 4 things that I noticed that were similar from between Serpent and Dove and Throne of Glass. I'm not going to openly state them because I don't want to risk spoiling anything for anyone if you decide to read this or Throne of Glass, or if you're reading Throne of Glass and haven't finished it yet. But I don't want to risk spoiling anything for anyone. So, I'm not going to say the specifics. But that just kind of weirded me out a bit. And I was like, oh, this sounds familiar. But, yeah. Those are all of the books that I've read so far this year. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you saw a book or 2 or more that you wanted to add to your TBR. I hope this video didn't suck. I hope it was worth my time that I spent making it. And, yeah, overall, I just hope you enjoyed. And I also hope you perhaps liked the video if you did enjoy it. Maybe even if you didn't enjoy it. Perhaps give me a comment on what you think I can improve on or do better. Or what you think of a book that I've talked about. Or if you have any questions about a book that I talked about. Or if you want to tell me about how horrible this video is. Honestly, I will accept anything. I would just like something. And even better, it would be even better and even nicer if you would subscribe. Even if you think my content is horrible, subscribe. So you can know when I post a new video, so you can be the first one to hate on it. I don't really care. Just give me something. Please, I spent my whole entire day on this. I could have been reading more books, adding to the list of how many books I've read this year, but instead I spent... What time is it? I spent 4 or 5 hours making this video and figuring out how to make my GoPro work. So just give me something. I'd really appreciate it. And so would my boyfriend that I ignored for this. At least he would know he got ignored for something, some kind of positive feedback. But, yeah. That's all for today. Bye!